In this video, we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of moving to St. George, Utah. If you're looking at moving to St. George, you're going to want to know that, hey, there are some good things about living here and there are some bad things as well. We're going to cover all of that here in this video. But before we do, let me introduce myself. My name is Cody. I'm a Utah native and I love helping people move here to Utah. I've helped people from all across the world make a move right here to Utah, and I would love to help you do the same. If you do end up making that move to St. George or anywhere in the state, reach out to me. Me and my team would love to chat with you. I want to have a chat about the type of home and lifestyle you're looking for, and to do that, my information's here on the screen. Call, text, or email anytime. I'd love to hear from you. Now, with that out of the way, we're going to start with the pros to living in St. George, and then we're going to cover some of the negatives, the cons to living in St. George that you need to know about. So number one on our list is we're looking at the weather. The weather is awesome in St. George. Yes, it does get hot during the summer and it gets a little bit cool over the winter, but for the most part, the weather is very manageable. For a lot of months out of the year, you can spend time outside and not have to worry about it being too cool or too hot. In the winter, you're typically looking at temperatures between 30, 40, and 50 degrees. It's going to be roughly, high 30s overnight, 40s in the morning and at night, and then 50s during the day. So if you want to go out and do stuff, 50 degrees is still pretty manageable. I mean, yeah, you're going to need a long sleeve shirt or a sweatshirt or a light jacket, but 50 degrees is really manageable. I mean, you could still go out and go golfing in that temperature, or you could go out and go hiking. You could do all these activities through the winter months. But in addition to that, you also get amazing weather during the spring and fall months as well. This is the perfect time to visit St. George. You've got February, March, April, May, and then looking on the back half of the year, you've got September and October, even November, where the weather is still very manageable and very nice. That's the time you want to be outside because it's very comfortable for us, right? So the weather here in St. George is absolutely phenomenal. Yes, it does get hot in the summer, but we're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. The second item on our list is that the airport is nearby. It's really easy to get to the St. George Regional Airport, and it's pretty easy to get a flight from St. George to Las Vegas, to Phoenix, or up to Salt Lake City, and then catch your international flight out of one of those airports. It's easy to get that flight, it's relatively short, and it's pretty easy to get around. So if you're going to be traveling on a regular basis, living somewhat closer to the airport might be more beneficial, but no matter where you live, even if you're in the other side of town, you're over in Santa Clara or Ivins, I mean, you're less than an hour drive to the airport, so it's really not that bad. Now, on the topic of transportation, it's really easy to get around. Let's say we're not talking about flying, but instead you want to drive somewhere. Well, it's only a 6-hour drive to get to Southern California. If you want to go to the beach, you want to go to Disneyland, whatever, you're looking at roughly 6 to 7 hours depending on traffic. Beyond that, you're about 4 hours to Salt Lake, maybe 4.5 again with traffic. You're roughly 2 hours to Las Vegas, and you're roughly 6 hours to get to Phoenix, Arizona. The third positive I have to talk about when it comes to St. George is the access to the outdoors and especially the national parks in the area. If you want unprecedented access to national parks, if you want to go visit these places over a weekend or even in one day, this is something that's definitely doable from the St. George area. To give you an idea of how close these state and national parks are, let me read off this list for you. To get to Sand Hollow, you're only a 30-minute drive from St. George. To get to the Grand Canyon, 4.5 hours. To get to the Grand Staircase Escalante, 2 hours. To Zion National Park, 1 hour. 3.5 hours to Capitol Reef, and 5 hours to Canyonlands. Literally a couple hours to 4 or 5 hours to get to all of these different state and national parks. That's really unprecedented access, and I don't know many other places where you can get access to that many national parks in just one place in that short amount of time. The next positive on our list here is that there's an extremely low crime rate in St. George, especially compared to other parts of the country. Now, you can't avoid crime altogether. Of course, there's still going to be crime whenever you get a large amount of people in one area. There's always going to be a crime for that area. The good thing about St. George and even just Utah in general is that we typically have a pretty low violent crime rate, which means, those are the really gruesome crimes that people are doing. And typically it's more property crime, right? It's going to be graffiti, or it's going to be trespassing, or it's going to be somebody breaking into your car, right? Not things that you want to have happen, but it's still better than the alternative violent crimes. So, crime is going to be very low, especially if you're coming from the West Coast, the East Coast, even the South. I mean, St. George has extremely low crime, and that's a huge plus, I think, for a lot of people. Now, if you are enjoying this video, then make sure to give me a thumbs up here on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and don't forget to share this video with a friend or family member who might also enjoy this video. You can actually just pause this video, share it with your spouse, share it with your kid, share it with your mom and dad, your friend, whoever else might be looking to move to St. George, and then come back and let's continue on with this video. So the next thing we have to talk about is that St. George is very community focused. St. George is a very family friendly place, and people really get along there, and they're generally pretty nice. This is something I hear all the time when people come and visit Utah. They just always comment to me, Cody, I can't believe that people like say hi to you when you're at the grocery store or you pass each other on the sidewalk. And for me, growing up here, that's kind of just a normal thing. I don't really understand what the big deal about it is, but St. George and even Utah in general is very community focused, very friendly, and there's a lot of people here, right? It's very family focused as well. Lots of kids. It's just a great place to raise a family and, grow up. So there's nothing really to complain about there. If that's what you're looking for, you're definitely going to find that here. Now, the last positive to living in St. George that we're going to talk about here today is that there's a very strong economy and the population is growing like crazy. We're seeing a lot of people move into the area, and this is going to bring a lot of high-paying jobs as well, which we're going to talk about here in just a second. But we really need those jobs to come into St. George, and that's going to happen with the population boom that we're seeing. So it's a very strong economy. Great jobs are out there, but we do need more of those, and that's something that we're going to expect. You can see here on this graph for Washington County that we are expecting a boom in the population over the next 10, 20, 30 years. So something to keep an eye on. If you're looking for a strong economy and an area that's growing, then that's going to be something that St. George is going to experience. All right, now let's jump into some of the negatives to living in St. George, because this half of the video might be more important to you than just the positives, right? If you're looking at moving to an area, you have to know that no area is going to be completely perfect, right? There's going to be some downsides, and St. George is no different. So starting at the top of our list, just like we talked about the outdoor access, St. George is going to get very hot during the summer. During the summer, from about noon on, it's almost impossible to be outside because it's just too hot. You're going to get heat exhaustion. You're going to collapse, you're going to die. No, I'm just kidding. You're not going to do that. But really, guys, it gets so hot, it's just like completely unbearable to even be outside. Yes, it is dry heat, so it's a little bit more manageable, right? We don't have the humidity that you get on the coastal cities or the, other areas of the country. But here in St. George, it just gets so hot that it's almost impossible to be outside. So you do get outdoor recreation and access throughout most of the year, but from let's say the end of May through the beginning of September, during the day, it's almost impossible to be outside doing anything. So that's the time where you're going to be sitting in the pool on your rubber ducky, your big blow up Swan, whatever it might be, or you're going to be sitting inside with the AC. So just something to keep in mind there. Now, the second thing on our list that we got to talk about is that there are fewer higher paying jobs. Just like we talked about that as a benefit, there's a strong economy here in St. George. We're also seeing that there's not a ton of high paying jobs. Most of the people coming in are working remote, and especially if they're earning a high income, it's because they're working at another company that's situated in a different city or a different state, right? So there's not a ton of high paying jobs unless you're like a doctor or a dentist or an attorney or something like that. Of course, those people are still going to have a very high income potential, but for most people out there, there's just not a ton of job opportunities just yet, but it is growing. So if you already have a job, if you're working remote, then that may not be a concern for you. Or if you've already got money, you're not concerned about the money necessarily, maybe you're retired or something like that, then again, this might not be a negative for you. But if you're looking to move to the area and you're saying, hey, I want to have, an opportunity for career advancement, it might be a little bit more difficult in St. George than it would be in other areas. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind when it comes to making that move here. The third downside to living in St. George is that you don't have as much access to higher end places. If you're looking for a high end restaurant, if you're looking for a high end shopping center, that thing just doesn't exist. If you're loaded to the sky and you want to go buy a Ferrari, well, you're going to have to go to Las Vegas, you're going to have to go to Salt Lake, you're going to have to go to Phoenix, because in St. George, they just don't have a Ferrari dealership, right? Most places don't. But that being said, you're also missing out on a lot of high-end restaurants. You're missing out on high-end stores. And if that's something you're kind of used to, then, you're going to have to make an adjustment there. Now, I think for most people, that's probably not a concern, because I don't know about you, but I'm definitely not shopping at these high-end stores on a regular basis. And I don't think 99% of people are, but it's just something to keep in mind. If you want to go out for a nice date night, it can be a little bit hard to find that nice restaurant to go to take your spouse to. So just something to keep in mind there. I do think there will be some growth in this sector. I think as we see more people come into Washington County, which currently has a population of roughly 180,000 people, as that number continues to grow, I think there's a chance you will get, that one-off restaurant that's really nice. You will get some better options, but it's going to take, a couple of years, maybe, a couple decades before that really happens though. Right now, there's just not quite enough people in the market to support those higher end businesses. All right, the fourth thing on our list here today that we need to talk about is that there's going to be a high cost of housing, relatively speaking, right? And what I mean by this is that the cost of living in St. George is actually very low. You can find that video that I did on the cost of living in St. George here on my channel. Just go down below, click my channel name, and then just type in cost of living and you'll see it. Or just type in cost of living St. George and you should see it as well on YouTube. So we talked about cost of living there. It's generally really low, but when it comes to housing is quite expensive. And that's kind of true for Utah in general, right? We do have low state income taxes and property taxes are very low as well. But this means that prices are relatively high compared to a lot of other areas in the country. Now, if you're from New York, you're from California, you're from, these other expensive areas, then you might look at St. George real estate and say, man, that's a steal. I can get that much house for $700,000 or $1 million. But if you're coming from Oklahoma or Kentucky or, Florida, you might be looking at St. George real estate and saying, that is insane. I can't believe people are paying that much for the housing there. So the cost of living for housing is definitely higher. Luckily, rents are still pretty low, so that's a good thing there. But if you're looking at buying a house, you should expect to pay a little bit more on a relative basis compared to, kind of how far your money would stretch if you're looking somewhere else. Now, the fifth thing on our list here, and it's probably not even a negative for most people, but I thought it was worth mentioning here. The thing about Utah and St. George specifically is that people really live here for the outdoor access. If you want to be going to the national parks, if you want to be going to, go hiking, you want to go boating, you want to go outside and enjoy nature, that's why people live here. So if you're looking for like a nightlife or a city life, you're not really going to find that in St. George. So for some people, that might be a downside, right? Maybe you're the type of person who wants to go downtown and hit the bars and whatever, and do that type of thing. Well, you're not really going to find that in St. George. So I think for probably 99% of the people watching this video, you're not in that demographic. But if you are, that's something that you just need to know about. There's not a ton of nightlife. I mean, that's not why people live in the area. And because it's such a family focused, strong community feel, that's just not the vibe that you're going to get in St. George. And that kind of leads me right into the next thing I wanted to talk about. Because it is so family focused, if you're a young professional, you're looking to get out there, you want to enjoy your time, you want to be hitting the city, whatever, going to these places, then, that might not be exactly the place for you. Just like I said in St. George, you're not going to find a ton of that nightlife or, that entertainment. Really, the entertainment is to get out and go and enjoy nature, right? That's the reason why I think most people are looking to move there. So I think it's worth mentioning that, there's just that difference there. So just make sure that that's what you're looking for and that that's what you're expecting. I think that's the most important thing, is just remember what the expectation is for living in that type of place. St. George is absolutely a phenomenal place for adults and kids who want to grow up in a family focused area and want to just have access to all of those fun things to do. So with that said, guys, that wraps up our video. If you're thinking about making that move here to St. George, before you click off this video, make sure to reach out to me. My information's here on the screen. Me and my team have literally helped people from all across the world move right here to our home state of Utah, and we'd love to help you as well. We want to have a chat about the type of home and lifestyle that you're looking to have when you do make that move here. So call, text, or email anytime. And before you go, give me a thumbs up on the video, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share this video with a friend or a family member who might also be interested in this type of content. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you in the next one.